In this video, I'm going to react to how good was NBA legend Jerry West really? Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. This is the place where I react to music, media, sports, anime, anything related to popular culture. I'll watch it with an open mind and give you my 100% honest reaction to it. And if you could please hit that like button early, I'd really appreciate it. Now this should be interesting because Jerry West, I believe he is the logo. Like I believe it's his silhouette that is the logo of the NBA. So to be the logo of the NBA, surely you have got to be a phenomenal player. I mean, you had to have done something really special because, you know, that's such an honor. You know, like every jersey that's sold worldwide has your body in it, you know, your silhouette. So I don't really know much about him. Like I've only been following the NBA for a couple of years now. So I thought, you know, like he's such a legend, but let me kind of find out what he did, you know, what he's really about. So let's go. This is going to be me reacting to how good was Jerry West really? Let's do it. All right. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant.
You hear it over and over again. Jerry West, the logo, Mr. Clutch. But does anybody ever stop and ask just how good was this man really in order to become the logo? With this video, we're delving into that. Now, Jerry West is probably the overall greatest NBA employee the league has ever had.
Wow.
Especially when you consider all the different aspects of his career. He was an all-time great player. He coached the Lakers back into relevance in his short coaching career. He's one of the greatest scouters and analyzers of talent the league has ever seen. And he's possibly the best executive ever, as he's proven himself over and over again as
wow, fair play to the man. Well-rounded.
a championship builder for multiple franchises. The thing is, out of all these things in his impressive resume, his playing career is the one that's the most distant in the past. And I think that's the reason his greatness is sometimes overlooked, or at least not appreciated as much as it should be. Let's change that injustice by marveling at his greatness, starting from the beginning of his career.
I do love those old school logos. I mean, not logos, uniforms. They've got a real cool look to them.
His greatness, starting from the beginning of his career. Jerry West was drafted in 1960 with the second overall pick by the Los Angeles Lakers. He was entering the league as a 6'2 to 6'4 point guard who had a very fundamentally sound game and was both a great shooter and facilitator. At the time, Elgin Baylor was the clear leader of the team, averaging nearly 35 points a game. But in West's rookie season, he had an immediate impact in a supporting role, averaging 17.6 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 4.2 assists on 42%
Highly respectable.
shooting. This was hardly a glimpse into what this man would become, because in terms of scoring and efficiency, they were well below the numbers he would become accustomed to. In his sophomore season in the league, he would have his chance to break out as a superstar, as Elgin Baylor spent much of his time that year serving in the military, missing roughly half the games that year. With Elgin often unavailable, West had to take more of a leadership role and a greater portion of the team's offense. And even as a 23-year-old in only his second year, West did a remarkable job, averaging 30.8 points, 7.9 rebounds, and 5.4
That's a big jump in productivity, going from 17 points to 30.
assists on 44.5%
In his second
shooting.
season.
If the Most Improved Player award had been a thing during that year in history, then Jerry almost certainly would have won it. With the 1-2 punch of West and Baylor firmly established, they both earned nicknames that complemented one another's game, given by the great Laker commentator Chick Hearn. Baylor was known as Mr. Inside, emphasizing his strong rebounding ability and low post scoring, while West was known as Mr. Outside because of his ability to facilitate from the perimeter and consistently knock down shots from a great distance. With that dynamic duo, they made it to the NBA Finals in only West's second season, and pushed a far more talented Boston Celtics team to a 7th game before ultimately coming up short.
It'd be awesome to see this footage in color, you know, just to see a glimpse into that time. You know, this was like 40 40, 50 years ago maybe.
This year in the finals, the Celtics were loaded with all-time greats like Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, Tommy Heinsohn, and Sam Jones. This coming up short to the loaded Celtics was a theme of Jerry's career, and honestly, just a theme of any team that played in the 1960s. We've talked about this in several past videos, but the Celtics were a stacked team with Hall of Famers during that era, and free agency did not exist in the 1960s, which essentially means that there was almost no player movement around the league at the time, which also means the Celtics stayed stacked for many years. And there was little other teams around the league could do to change the enormous gap in talent between them and Boston. It's arguably the biggest contributing factor into why the Celtics won 8 straight championships in the 60s. That and because Bill Russell is a badass and deserves a lot of credit for it. The reason why I'm explaining this is because Jerry West went to the finals 9 times and only won it all once.
Oh man, 9 appearances and 1 win. Oh, you know, people give LeBron a lot of crap because he's been to the finals, I think 9 times, and he's only won 4. Yeah, 9 and 1. It's not great.
How is it that a man that's known as Mr. Clutch is also 1 and 8 in the NBA Finals?
Good question.
It's because the lack of free agency and player freedom that the 1960s, more so than any other era of NBA history, was a time where players stayed put with their franchises. I wouldn't say that they were more loyal to their teams during that era. They were trapped. Jerry West was almost always clutch down the stretch and a big game performer, regardless of the fact that his losses were often at the hands of a team with plenty of all-stars. Jerry averaged 27 points per game over his career, but in the playoffs,
that's really good, over his entire career.
He raised his game and scored 29.1 points per game, which is the 3rd highest playoff scoring average in NBA history, ahead of greats like LeBron, Kobe, and Kevin Durant.
Wow.
The playoffs are where games slow down and where more elite defense is represented. So more often than not, players average less points in the playoffs. But then there are guys like Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, and Jerry West, who gave even more production when it mattered most. Staying on the clutch thing for a minute, but to go along with the numerous game winners over his career, Jerry had some of the most ridiculous playoff runs of all time. Like in 1965, where West averaged a stupid 40.6 points per game over the entirety of the 1965 playoffs.
Crazy.
40.6. That's the 2nd highest single-season playoff average of all time.
Crazy.
Only Michael Jordan has one greater at 43.6. But I would argue that Jordan's shouldn't even count, since MJ did his in only a 3-game series when they were swept by the Celtics. The Logo did his in 11 games that ended in the NBA Finals. 11 games to 3. Jerry's is clearly more impressive. He also had one of the greatest NBA Finals ever in the 1969 season. So just how much did he stand out in that series? Well, enough to be the only Finals MVP in NBA history to win the award on the losing team. In that epic 7-game series, he averaged 37.9 points, 7.4 assists, and 4.7 rebounds on 49% shooting.
Mental. Just look at this. 37.9 points per game average.
He nearly carried his Lakers to beat that Celtics team, as the Lakers' next best contributor offensively was Elgin Baylor, who averaged less than 20 points per game over that series.
Big deficit from 37 to 20. You know, looks like Jerry pretty much put that team on his back.
And shot under 40% from the field. In the first game of that series, West set the tone and scored 43 points in a 2-point victory. In the final and deciding game of that series, West dropped 42 points in a 2-point loss. With even just a tiny bit more help, Jerry's legendary performance would have earned him another championship. Jerry could also beat you in multiple ways. In 1970, he led the league in scoring with 31.2 points per game, and just 2 years later, he led the league in assists with 9.7 per game. Jerry was a consistent force, as he played a total of 14 years in the league and was named an All-Star every single one of those years.
Wow.
He also made 12 All-NBA teams. Something I almost never hear mentioned is how great of a defender he was as well. The Logo made 5 All-Defense teams in his career, which sounds great enough and impressive within itself, but then you realize the NBA was only doing all-defense teams since 1969. That means that Jerry was only eligible for that award 6 years of his career, and he earned the selection 5 of those seasons. There were 8 incredible years of his career before that honor even existed.
Yeah, this guy, he is great at intercepting the ball.
Not only that, but those 5 years he was eligible and made the all-defense team were from the age of
Or steals, that's what they're called, intercepting the ball, stealing.
30 to 35. That is typically a time when NBA players are past their prime, they're slowing down, and don't stand out as much defensively. But clearly, Jerry West was an exception. Steals and blocks were not accounted for in those days, but if you asked anyone who saw West play, they'll tell you about his defensive prowess. In his playing days, the three-point line did not exist in the NBA yet, and Jerry West was yet another great who could have greatly benefited from the three-point line. As we mentioned earlier, one of his numerous nicknames was Mr. Outside, because of his ability to hit perimeter shots at a remarkably efficient rate. Let's ponder this. He has the 5th highest scoring average in NBA history and the 3rd highest in playoff history as a 6'2" perimeter shooting guard with no three-point line.
Yeah, that's crazy. If you were to, add a sort of three-point shot, a decent amount of those to his record, he might be number 1 of all time, on the scoring list.
Imagine if he had a three-point line. What would his numbers have looked like then? For his career, he averaged 27 points, 6.7 assists, and 5.8 rebounds on a remarkable 47.4% shooting. At first glance, you might not think 47.4% is all-time great efficiency, but for a 6'2" player who scores like he does, yeah, that's mind-blowing how good that is. If you look at the list of the highest scoring averages in NBA history, and look to find a player who was Jerry West's size or smaller who shot as efficiently as Jerry did, you would have to go all the way down from West at the 5th spot to the 122nd spot, where Calvin Murphy averaged 17.9 points on 48.2% shooting. That means the nearest comparable player to West in terms of stature and efficiency averaged almost 10 points less per game over his career than Jerry West did. That is astonishing. Now I should add that Jerry West has stated that he's a bit taller than his so-called official listing. Even if you list him at say 6'4", you still have to go pretty far down the list. The point remains the same regardless. To average as much as he did, as efficiently as he did, at his stature, is unheard of. The season that stands out the most from Jerry's career from a team perspective is the 71-72 season. That's the year he led the league in
That was a full court shot, wasn't it?
assists while putting up 25.8 points per game, while the Lakers won an NBA record 33 straight games. And of course, they went on to be NBA champions that year, beating the Knicks comfortably in 5 games. Simply put, the man is one of a kind, and as you dig deeper into his greatness, it makes total sense why they made him the logo. Let me know in the comments section where you rank Jerry West among the greatest point guards of all time. Make sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that him being the logo, Jerry West being the logo, is justified. I mean, to do what he did at his size, back then when there wasn't a three-point line, so all the shots he took were two-point shots. Yeah, it's just phenomenal productivity. It's a shame that he didn't win more than 1 championship. If he had a bit more help, it's likely he would have won multiple. But yeah, what a player Jerry West was. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, and keep throwing the recommendations my way. I know I say it all the time, but they genuinely help me out, because if I know you enjoyed watching something, I'll definitely enjoy reacting to it. So like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, keep throwing the recommendations, and I'll catch you in the next one.